Hi everyone, welcome back to my Italy series. So today I'm going to be doing like 5 differences between Italy and Australia. And I was sitting down the other day and I was planning out these videos that I wanted to film, and more things just kept coming to me, even things that I didn't really think about that are kind of present in my everyday life. It's weird the amount of things that you learn or you notice that's different, but you kind of just go about your day-to-day life, and it's not until you reflect upon these things that you actually realize how different it is. And I think these are things that when I go back to Australia, I think I'll really notice it then. So I've come up with 5 things for today, just differences between Italy and Australia, continuing on from my last video. But I hope you guys are enjoying this series. I know I find it extremely fun to film, so I hope you guys are learning something, because I've definitely learned a lot this year as well. So let's just get straight into the 5 things. The first thing I'm going to talk about that I found so weird and also like a little bit scary when I first arrived here was about pedestrian crossings and what they actually mean in Italy. This was a massive shock to me as well when I first got here, that pedestrian crossings don't actually necessarily mean that cars are going to stop for you on the road. And someone actually mentioned this in the comments of it must have been 2 videos ago. Someone mentioned it in the comments and I was like, oh yeah, like why didn't I think of that? But that was one of the main things as well that really shocked me when I got here. Is I was like going to walk across the road and the cars just like weren't stopping for me. So I was like waiting for the cars to go past, and they're not going to stop until you actually start walking. So if you start walking, they'll slow down and stop for you. But if you're waiting at the pedestrian crossing, they're not going to like stop their car to let you cross, if that makes sense. Or they'll do it like really rarely. So you have to be a little bit pushy in Italy, and just like if you want something, you've just got to go for it. And that's not just in pedestrian crossings, that's like a lot of things as well, which I'll talk about in this video as well. Or if I don't talk about it in this video, I'll talk about it in an upcoming video. But yeah, that was the first thing that I found really weird. So the second thing that I noticed that's quite different between Italy and Australia is the food process. And I found this quite an interesting contrast, because in Italy, and I think in my last video I talked about the coffee culture and how it's really quick, and they just kind of go into the bar, get their espresso, drink it in like 5 minutes and leave. The food culture and restaurant kind of process is the complete opposite in Italy. So in Italy they have like quite a long restaurant process, and it's like this specific order that you're meant to eat your food in. So for example, you might have your antipasti, and then your primo, your secondo, and then you could get like a salad or a side, and then they have dolce and coffee. And I missed out actually something in there as well. It was the digestivo, which I mentioned in my last video, the little alcoholic drink that they have at the end of their meal to aid digestion. I found one of the major differences between Italy and Australia in this respect is the waiters will never rush you out of the restaurant. So in Australia, for example, when you go out to eat at a restaurant, they might have like set seating sessions, for example, and certain times that you have to actually be out of the restaurant, because they're wanting to turn the tables over and make more money from the table. Because usually in Australia, you just order kind of one dish or like an entree and a main meal, maybe dessert, but there's not like that entire process like there is in Italy. And we don't have like digestivo or anything like that after the meal. It's just kind of like your meal, your dessert, and then you go. And they kind of want to like hurry up the process and get you out so that they can make more money off the table. A lot of the times they'll actually bring your bill over for you, or they'll print it like ready for you and bring it over and just be like, look, when you're ready, just pay up at the counter or something. That never happens in Italy, or it's never really happened to me at all anyway. They're always like waiting for you to ask for it, or unless you go up to the counter and be like, okay, I'm ready to pay, they're not gonna like push you out of the restaurant. They're not going to hurry you up. So this can be both annoying and also really good, because if you're not in a rush and you just want to, like if you're going out for dinner with your friends or your family or something, it can be really nice to not feel like you're being rushed in a restaurant. But sometimes it is a little bit annoying when you ask for your bill and they don't bring it to you, and you have to like ask again and again and again. But usually in this case, you just like go up to the counter and settle it up. But yeah, if you're in Italy, the restaurant process is really, really slow, which I actually like. I think it's kind of nice, like sitting down, enjoying your meal together. I think it's really nice. And not feeling like under pressure to leave in a hurry, because that's one thing that I hate about Australia, is that they're trying to make it like really, really quick and get you out of there really quickly. And it's like, whoa, relax. Another thing about like restaurant culture and something that's different, definitely a lot different from Australia, is that, for example, in Australia, if you go out and you order a meal and you don't want a certain ingredient on it, or you want to add something else or get extra of something else, it's really not that common in Italy. You kind of just like order the dish as it is, and you don't really make modifications to it unless you have some kind of allergy or something, but you'll probably receive weird looks if you want to modify something on the menu or like order things in a strange order, because as I said before, they kind of eat their food in a specific way. So if you ordered like a secondo piatto and not the primo, they might think it's a little bit weird, and they might try and recommend you something. They might try and recommend you something in the correct order, for example. Whereas in Australia, if you order something, like that's what they're gonna get you. They're not gonna contest you about it. They're not going to question you. Whereas in Italy, and I completely understand this as well, because they have a specific way of doing things, and that's the experience that they want you to have. So they want you to experience like how Italians actually do it. So if you're a tourist, for example, like when I first got here, and I wanted to order something in a weird order, and the waiter often will recommend the best way to do it. Or if you order like a coffee with your meal or something that's really weird, well, it's considered strange in Italy. The waiter isn't afraid to speak up and tell you, whereas in Australia that just wouldn't happen. Like no one would do that, because it's just like, we don't really have traditional like ways to eat like Italians do. And also another thing, not necessarily at restaurants, but I've noticed this in like everyday kind of Italian life, is like if they have a pasta with tomato sauce and it's just the tomatoes, they put like cheese on top of the pasta. But say if it was like a tomato sauce but it had tuna in it, for example, they're not really gonna put cheese. If any kind of seafood pasta, you don't really add cheese to the pasta, if that makes sense. The next thing took me a while to get used to, because especially when I came here and I didn't really understand the Italian language at all, and I hadn't really had any experiences with it before in kind of like a real life context. The way that they discuss trivial matters, or even just the way they discuss things in general, oftentimes seems like they're angry at each other or they're having a go at each other. But the Italian way to speak and the Italian way to like discuss things is just very passionate, and it's just very expressive. So they'll use their hands like this, and they'll change the intonation of their voice and all of these things, their body language and the way they kind of go and like things like that, that kind of just are more expressive of how they're feeling and more expressive of like their opinion on something. So it's not considered rude or anything like that. It's just the way that they speak to each other normally. So one thing that I've noticed in Australia is like, unless someone is really, really angry at you, or they have like a particularly expressive personality or something, the way that we speak is, compared to Italians, is very monotone. It's very monotonous. You're not really gonna find it's common like it is in Italy for people to be like over expressive with their hand gestures and like their facial expressions and that kind of thing. Whereas in Italy it's just like a cultural thing. It's just the way people communicate, it's the way people express themselves, and it's just like one difference from Italy and Australia. I really like that about Italians, because everything you get is at face value. Like if they feel something, they're gonna tell you, and if they don't tell you, they're gonna show you. So I really love that about Italy, is that people are very like upfront, straightforward, to the point. There's no beating around the bush, there's no crap. It's just like this or it's this. And I really like that. It saves a lot of time in conversations, definitely. Last thing that I'm going to talk about in this video is public displays of affection. So in Australia, if you're, out in public and you see a couple that's being like overly touchy-feely, or they're kissing a lot or something, people might start to feel a bit uncomfortable, or like, oh, that's weird, or they either won't be able to look away, or they will like not want to look, or something like that, and you might receive like a few weird looks, or people might start to feel uncomfortable around you or something. But in Italy, it's in the metro, it's on the streets, it's at the spa, it's at the pool, like it's everywhere you go, and it's completely socially acceptable, like it's completely normal. Italians are very affectionate and they're very expressive and passionate, and that's just another part of their culture, which I think is actually really nice. No one's judging you, no one's looking at you weird, no one starts to feel uncomfortable about it. Like it just is what it is, and it's just part of their culture as well. So yeah, it's kind of nice. That's all I'm going to talk about for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Give it a thumbs up if you liked it, and make sure to subscribe down below for new videos every single week. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you very soon in my next video. Bye.